here we are. How does it feel to be sitting in the Lighthouse gym 20 years later?
You know, the truth be known, I really didn't think I would be here 20 years later. And it's not that the building looks that much different. It's me and Dennis and everybody else kind of looks different now.
It's so quiet too. I mean, when we first built this and first started opening, it was never quiet.
No.
Well, you know, this is not how we originally planned to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Lighthouse, but with the pandemic and all the changes that suddenly came on us and the rest of the world, we had to shift our plans forward. And so we're looking forward to next year in 2021 when we'll celebrate the anniversary of the Lighthouse, this significant milestone in the ministry that has taken place here. But to go back to the beginning, where did the idea for this facility really come from?
My understanding is it was, I started in 96, but it was at least 10 years before that with Rob Moxley and Louise Barton and some other people had brought up the idea here at the church about the possibility of having some type of leisure recreation ministry here at the church.
I think back into the late 80s and into the early 90s when the entire leisure ministry movement was beginning to ignite itself among churches, not only here in Birmingham, but around the United States. And in Birmingham, there was a great effort to begin to put facilities and ministry together in a new and exciting way. It got to be more than just recreational basketball or recreational some sport. It became a way to draw families together, to do things from arts, crafts, and recreation.
So they actually started the idea from that, and then in 96 I was fortunate to be hired here. And when we in the old gym, we had the old gym there, and we were starting to do some activities there. And then all of a sudden there was a meeting one day, one of the administrative board meetings, where they went in thinking they were going to get a new sanctuary, and lo and behold, they came out of the meeting and they said, "We're going to build a Christian Life Center." I was a little surprised. I don't know about you, Dennis.
Well, I'd been in multiple meetings to do the master plan, and we had all these drawings, and I had all these charts in my office and everything of the layout and how we was going to entrance the new sanctuary and all this and what was going to be there and the music people involved and everybody in there. And then they came back and says, "Well, we decided we're going to build what they called Lighthouse, but a Family Life Center at the time." And I said, "We don't have any plans for that."
So how did you come up with the design for this space?
Jim and I went all over the state and around, and we looked at every place. Jim would come in and says, "I found another one." and a lot of times he'd say, "You know where this is?" And I said, "Yeah." Then I don't remember him coming in. He says, "You know where Silicon is?" "Yeah." And so we went down there and looked at. We went literally every place in the state. We finally ended up over at Hunter Street and looked at theirs. And one of the key questions we always asked was, "What would you do different if you did it?" And I guess if we had to say that our design started out from anywhere, it was probably from Hunter Street, and with the changes they did, and then we went over to various places, and some place we looked at and we said we don't like this at all. And other places we thought, well, these people got some good ideas. And Jim and I would kind of sort it out in the car driving between these places. Then we had a concept, and then of course we took it to the building committee and went from there.
Well, so you looked at some existing models of what the Christian Life Center could be, and so you had the best practices in mind, asking that good question of what would you do differently, or how would you have changed this if you could do it over again? Were there any glitches in the process here with all that education? I mean, you did all the homework. Were there any glitches in the process?
Oh, yes. The first one was we found out that we had all these land use covenants.
Oh.
And not only did we have this land covenant, I literally had a chart in my office of which property did our parking lot back here was covered by 5 covenants, and a street that was supposed to be there that never, technically the city had never done away with, and they could have came through and decided they wanted to put a street in. We had some neighborhood resistance. Marshall Ring and Louise Barton and a bunch of them went around and talked to the neighbors. And some of them were great with it, and some of them weren't. And it finally came down to we'd get this covenant settled, and we'd get this one and that one, and we finally got down to one covenant that was left, and with 5 houses, and we couldn't get a consensus, or a majority, so we bought the house. And we got our 3rd vote, and then went from there.
This row here on Canyon Road actually had 3 parsonage here. We had people, Esco McBay was living in one when we came in the 70s. I know Mike and Barbara Harper were here. They raised Kristen and Kelly. Kelly Harper Avery, the leader of our Vestavia dance. Jim Frazier had a parsonage here, Jim Roby, Ted Leach. And these houses were here, but on the far end down there was Bob and Sue Strozier's house. And Brett and Mike grew up in that house. Brett is now married to Ann Strozier, our director of preschool ministries. But Bob and Sue had that corner house down there and gave that property to the church for the Lighthouse. And it was built on that property. So this ground is hallowed ground here in Dick Kelly Park, but it's the home of many pastors that have been here. And it's such a beautiful place to have this lighthouse setting.
Then the next thing we ran into was water, because the water coming down through our parking lot and flooding the houses back here, people looked at us as a solution to that. And so we had to come up with a big runoff water plan. And that was just before the groundbreaking. Then we ran into other situations like tying in with the existing elevations between the building here and there. That's why we ended up with the steps and we're level at the upstairs, and we've got steps down here. We had to work around rock. We found rock everywhere. Then Jim was probably working other program problems that I wasn't aware of.
Well, it had to be a challenge tying into this whole topography of this land, because there's nothing easy about the landscape of this lot, and you can walk through our building and see that. Well, how did you come up with the name The Lighthouse?
Well, that was something we kind of, as we were going through the whole process of what we were going to do, how this was going to be and everything, that at some point we just said, so what are we going to call it? What's it going to be named? What are we going to do? And so we just started asking people and things and coming up to it. And I went I remember the day I walked up to the office and Janine Hayes was volunteering in the front office. And I said, Janine, I said, what are we going to call the building? We need a name. She said, oh, it's simple, Jim. It's the Lighthouse.
As we began our process of working on phase 1, right toward the end, we said, we've got to name this facility. And in the neighborhood, there were family life centers, Christian life centers, and we wanted to do something different. And it came to me that we wanted to be a church and a community that reached a lot of people, not just our church members. And that made me think of a lighthouse. The lighthouse shines its light far, far out, and it has brought many, many people to our church, members and not members.
So, with that kind of a vision of being a beacon out into the community, but then having to work through the tying the building in with the other buildings and the land covenants and the water runoff and all these other little joys, how long did this take from conception all the way through to finish?
It took 2 years just from the original groundbreaking, which we had in May of '98. I have to have a shovel. We gave all the kids a shovel to shovel sand. And we actually were 2 years from the groundbreaking to where we actually broke ground. I mean, with real construction equipment. not just decorative shovels. And it took 2 years at that point. Then I think we were probably, what, a year and a half after that?
Probably.
It went pretty fast.
You want to tell them? Let's tell them all the names of the people on the building committee.
Yeah.
You're sitting with all of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were the entire.
Y'all were it. Y'all were it.
They figured that the thinking of it was that I knew, he knew all about air conditioning, heating things and all that, and I knew how it was going to be run, all the programming parts of it. So we were able, basically for 3 years, we were daily, weren't we? Basically for 3 years we worked together, and luckily we like each other and stuff, we're able to do that. But because of that, really, it did, all that we were able, the church pretty much gave us free reign for the most part to do what we wanted to do with it. So we really didn't have big committees that we had to take votes on and those sort of things.
Well, that probably did help move things along with all the roadblocks along the way.
See, our original thing was we had the gym up there in the what's Fellowship Hall now, which had no room around it. It had like just walking space around the gym floor. It wasn't really usable, but we were trying to keep the gym was trying to keep the programs going, and we did a lot of upward basketball stuff and everything, and he can speak to that. But we did that. But the other thing was we had to keep in mind too what was following, so we didn't do that because we were going to do the Fellowship Hall after. We were going to do the preschool floor, the elementary floor, and you had to keep in mind that so you didn't get in the way if something was coming down the road. And sometimes it got a little crazy. Also, you're trying to save money, so okay, if we buy this now, we can get a quantity price and we'll save it for this. And so there was a lot of economics involved too. Lori came on board at some point. And Lori, for those who don't know, Lori was just a little small girl that was very into physical fitness. And she and I would go around and raise money. And it was real obvious when I went in, I was going to talk about building, she was going to talk about the fitness program.
So you spend all of this time from groundbreaking all the way through to when you really start moving land and building. You're both having to work your full-time jobs, actually doing the other parts of your ministry here, and you finally get to that day when it's done, or it's done enough for a grand opening. We'll phrase it.
That's better.
We'll phrase it like this: done enough for a grand opening.
We were able to have the grand opening.
What was that day like?
It was a great day, and I'll say this for Mickey and the church. The church did a great job across the board in this. Like I said, giving us for the freedom to do stuff. We were able to hire Lori Watkins 6 months ahead of time, so she was on board, and she worked here for 10 years, did a great job, and now she is running her own place and all. But we were able to have her on board, and that day we actually had a worship service at 11 o'clock up in the sanctuary, and it was all about the idea of leisure ministry things. I was up there with Mickey. We wore our type polo. Everybody wore polo shirts that day and things. I think that the ushers did and all. And when the service was over, we all got up and we led everybody out of the sanctuary, walked down the hill all the way to the front of the lighthouse here, and had the whole groundbreaking out front of the lighthouse. It was just a great day. The weather was hot, but it was a great day. Yeah. And we had people of all ages here. I thought everything went great.
I was so thrilled. We got it done before Warren Ogletree died. He had been in every groundbreaking picture we ever had from the chapel on, and he was really excited about it. And we had a big lift to take pictures. And went up 30 feet, and Warren said, "I want to see this from up above," and he did. And but I kept thinking, is everything going to work? All morning I sit there in church and thinking, when we flip the switches, is everything going to work?
Yeah. Well, so you moved then recreation ministry from the Fellowship Hall, the gym that is now the Fellowship Hall, over into this facility. What was the staff like that year?
Well, yeah, like I said, we were able to hire Lori Watkins 6 months out, but then as soon as we moved in here, we realized a couple of things. One is we needed a person out front that would welcome people, and we hired Keely Burrow, who is there to this day. 20 years later, she's wonderful, always has a smiling face, is great, welcomes people. But also, we needed volunteers because we'd only budgeted a little bit of money for staff and all. We knew that was always going to be. And so we started off with about, I want to say around 40 some volunteers. And so, and when we had it, we were open like 96 hours a week here, which is quite a bit we probably, compared to other Christian Life Centers, we were open more. And so we needed people here all the time. Me and Lori could not be here all the time. And so we had to have volunteers. So the first year, it was exciting. There was a lot going on and stuff with it. But luckily, like I said, the church was really good to us through this whole process. And so we were able to do it the right way. And so it was kind of smooth with Lori already being here and us already having the idea, the plans. And actually it already started. The sports was already going. The ministry dictated the facility. Does that make sense? We started the ministry before we came up with the need for the facility after the ministries had already started.
Okay.
And, speaking of volunteers, I mean, Jim was great at getting volunteers. I mean, he really would. I mean, I never thought I would be a basketball coach. But, he would drag in more people for different things, and we had more volunteers, and it really... so when we did open up the first day, everybody's looking forward to it. Everybody was thinking, oh, okay, we don't have to play gym basketball upstairs. We do everything. And it just really, it was very, very well received.
Wow. Yeah. So looking back now, I mean, there's so much that happened in this space, all through this building. What was the first event that you housed here?
There's a little bit of argument on that. I say it was our Making a Difference basketball camp with Coach Murray Bartow and the children, underprivileged children. Barbara Lee, who I love dearly, who worked on here for many years and all, says the body recall class was in here the first thing. But I remember allowing them in before we wanted to use the space a little bit, and they needed a space to be here. But it was one or the other. It was either the body recall class or the Making a Difference basketball camp.
It was actually body recall, and the reason being, that was my fault. Because we were having something up in Fellowship Hall, and that's where she had body recall, and I says, you just go down there. Just go down. Don't tell anybody you're down there. Just do it down there. So she was actually in here before we were okay to occupy it.
Yeah, but the thinking of it was that what a great way to start the ministry of reaching out and doing something for the ministry, the kids and all, and the community to bring them in here. And they were just fascinated by and actually that year with that camp, we were able to donate and get shoes for all the children that came to that basketball camp that year. They all were given a new pair of tennis shoes.
Wow. So, but what I'm hearing is that technically, Barbara Lee and Body Recall was the first event housed in here because Dennis broke the rules.
That's right.
Exactly.
Okay, I thought that.
I know you're surprised.
I'm so shocked, but I thought that was what I heard.
Yeah,
I thought that was what I heard. Well, over the years, what have been the top three or four ministries that have been a part of the Lighthouse?
Well, I would say the three to me would be the not in any order of where they are, but the family night things that we were able to do through here, the different things, the events. We had drive-in movies. When we did our 10th anniversary in the gym here, we had 20 tables, and each table had a separate theme night from all the theme nights we used to do. Every summer we would have one a month, a theme night, and we had a lot of family activities. The second thing I would say is what we call our mobile rec ministry. It came from servant evangelism ministry that we were wanting to reach out to our community. And we bought a bread truck, and we called it the MERV, the mobile rec vehicle. And we hauled stuff not only around Birmingham, but all over the state. And so we were able to take the ministry from this location out into the community. And then the third thing, which is probably the biggest thing here, is the Upward Ministries, the Upward Sports, which we actually started. We were I think the second church in the state to start Upward Sports and all. And it's been huge. We actually designed this gym for Upward basketball. It's actually the way everything's laid out in here is for the Upward basketball going. We had Upward basketball, and every time I'd come up with something new, I'd go to Dennis or David and some of the people, and I'd go, okay, I got another idea. What? Okay, let's do Upward flag football came along. How are we going to do that? I don't know, but we're going to do it. Then Upward Soccer came along,
Yeah.
and we did that and all. And then we had cheerleaders with the basketball and with the flag football. But the Upward has really been that one thing that really ties in sports and ministry together. And it's really been able to reach out really through the community through that.
My passion is Upward Sports. As best I recall, it was 2001, the first year I got involved in the sports program. I was at Upward flag football, where you're supposed to pull the flags to bring a runner down. Went on the opening play of the first season. Jared Frazier ran down the field and made the most beautiful tackle you have ever seen. And everybody clapped and cheered because they didn't realize you were only supposed to pull flags. But I was with Jim when we laid sod for the first soccer season out at Oakmont. And for some reason, Upward thought it was great to have black double knit shirts that year, double woven. It was only about 98 when we were out there. Jim took a group of us to hear Kaz McCallum at one of the Upward training sessions, and I was blown away by the whole concept of playing for a purpose and teaching children about Christ through sports. Upward is special because it goes beyond just the winning and losing. I remember talking to the father of a 6-year-old child who had gone through cancer and was beating cancer. And he told me, what got us through it was we never asked, why me? We always asked, why not me? Why should we be different than anybody else? And that struck me as really profound when he said it. And several years later, when I was diagnosed with cancer, it became one of the thoughts that kept me from having pity for myself and kept trying to move forward to do good in ministry. It is wonderful to know that because we had a special place for special needs children in our basketball program, that a young man named Philip, after playing with us for 3 years, was able to make his junior high school basketball team. We had given him a place where he could grow and learn and flourish. The highest honor of my life will probably always be the day I was told that they had chosen to name the basketball court after me. It is nothing that I have done, but I'm so pleased that God chose to work through me in this Upward ministry.
Fourth one I think of is, and we really didn't design this place with that much in mind, but Vestavia Dance is so big
Yep.
here now.
Yep.
Originally, we built a dance room. Yeah, we're going to use one room, and we built another room, and we envisioned the big room over the entranceway as kind of like kind of like we use the small dining room now, and that never materialized. And Vestavia Dance just kept growing and growing, and offices moved in here and everything, and we never saw that coming.
No.
I think that was one of the big surprises to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this facility allowed Vestavia Dance to have a home and to keep growing. Kelly Avery's done a tremendous job, and now it extends out even with the Magic City Nutcracker and all of the classes and the competition groups that she has now. That ministry is phenomenal. What
It is.
Kelly Avery and Angel White both do, and all the teachers and instructors in that program. So with all that you two have experienced here, and from when there was nothing here but houses and land covenants, all the way through to here we are 20 years later. What do you see as the legacy of the Lighthouse?
Go ahead.
I would like to think that the legacy of the Lighthouse was that this was, I kept saying for 3 years when we were building, this is a tool for ministry. This is a tool for ministry. It's a tool for ministry, that we never get caught up of the facility itself as much as what's come out of it and the people and how it has affected lives and how it's changed lives. I've had several people come up and just say, my entry point to the church here was through the Lighthouse, through my children coming to basketball or doing arts and crafts here, or something, camp here, or having something here. And I think the legacy of it is going to be in the people that it has affected over the years.
One Sunday morning, there was a sweet little lady who came in and sat on the very back row of the church. And for several weeks she came. I didn't know her. She had never been there before. She came and sat on the back row. And then after a few weeks, she kind of moved up 3 or 4 rows. And then she moved up closer until she finally came to about the 3rd row. And this was a month, maybe 2 or 3 months later. And one Sunday morning during the invitation, she responded to the invitation. And she came, made a profession of faith, already in her 70s, made a profession of faith in Jesus Christ, and we baptized her and received her into the life of this congregation. Gussie Arnett was her name. And I asked Gussie afterwards, I said, Gussie, we're so glad you're here. How did you get to this church? She says, well, I've got some friends who walk the track at the Lighthouse. And one of them invited me to come and join in the walking group that was walking. And she said, I felt so very welcome, so much at home, that I began using the Lighthouse. And then her friend said, well, would you come join me in a worship service? And she said, I did. And she said, from that point on, I knew that this was where God wanted me to be. And this is why I made my profession of faith and joined this congregation.
There's still people, not just in this church membership, but look favorably on this church just because of the programs we've had. You know, they may have another church they go to, another denomination, but they still came here for their sports stuff, and they remember that. So we're looked at very well in the community in that regard, and you know that kind of is part of the legacy to me. That we're known out in the community, just outside our own people.
Absolutely. I think as we look back across 20 years of the Lighthouse, and Janine Hayes' idea that this would be a lighthouse because it would be a beacon out into our community, out into our world, I think your dream has become a reality, and that's what this place is. Over the years I've been here, I have met so many people that either are a member of the church because of something they experienced here with Upward or Dance or some other program through the fuel classes or something like that. Or, I've been out in the community and have been known by, oh, you're the preacher at the church with the Lighthouse. And that's how we're known, because there's so many people that, like you said, whether this is their church home or not, this is the place where they go and they bring their family, and it plays a major role in our community. It truly is a beacon out into our community and calls people into this church. And so I think that that's sort of our history. And that's a little bit of where we are right now, though the pandemic has stopped everything. We know that that's only for a season, and the Lighthouse will burn brightly again as we look into the future. And I know that as we go into the future, the Lighthouse will be a significant part of the ministry of Vestavia Hills Methodist Church from now and for always. And so I thank both of you for giving us this space and making this a reality. And I don't know if we'll ever be able to count the number of lives that you two have touched through what you created right here.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much.
Jim and I've got this 10-year anniversary shirt on. I think he's working on getting us the 50th one. Well, maybe not.